The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The East Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Welcome back to East Lindsey again, everybody. I'm here all week to take on 5 more in the glorious Lincolnshire countryside. And you know what? Speaking of glorious Lincolnshire countryside, that's exactly what I can see all around me right now. Would you check this out? Lovely day as well. It's going to be a good day for filming these villages. Now, the village I'm in today is split into 2 parts. It's got a high part and a low part. This right here, this is the low part, and there are 2 things which make this part of the village notable. That building is one of them. We'll discover what that is in just a few moments' time. Welcome to Hameringham. Hameringham, village of the Hammer Dwellers. All this week on TVI, we're in East Lindsey as we take on the last batch in this district for 2025. Don't worry, I will be back next year. All 5 of these feature some tiny villages that span a chunk of land between Horncastle and Spilsby, and first up we have Hameringham. This one can be split into 2 areas, namely Low Hameringham and High Hameringham. These prefixes represent their location relative to each other. Low is in the south, whilst High is in the north, literally on some higher ground. Both are scattered, dispersed settlements with no true nucleus to them. They have a handful of buildings between them, but that number includes a church, 2 old chapels and a gorgeous thatched cottage. Otherwise, Hameringham is all about farms and their associated buildings. It's the Lincolnshire countryside at its most typical out here. Also included within the parish boundaries is the deserted medieval village of Dunsthorpe, located near Hameringham Grange. It commanded its own parish at one time before it was abolished in the 15th century and merged with Hameringham. It had its own church too, but that was said to be in ruins by 1421. Nothing remains of it today. So with all that considered, this won't be a long episode. We have a short walk to do in High Hameringham, but a lot of this will be covered by driving. Are you ready for another scenic drive then through the openness that we've come to know and love in Lincolnshire? Of course you are. Let's go. This is what the parish of Hameringham looked like in 1900, and honestly, you would do well to spot any major difference between this and the modern settlement. Hameringham is a very dispersed village, scattered far and wide across the area of land it covers. There are 2 main areas, High Hameringham and Low Hameringham. Low Hameringham is barely on the map, but that's the area where you'll find Dunsthorpe, a now deserted medieval village. High Hameringham is effectively the same 2 roads now as the 2 that are marked on this map. It has a church, a disused chapel and a thatched cottage. The rest of the parish is all farmland and there's lots of it. There have been no massive housing building programmes out here, so Hameringham has pretty much been left alone for 100 years. Let's start with Low Hameringham then. This is just to the south of High Hameringham, and you could perhaps count on one hand how many houses there are here. Note there's a chapel marked on this map. That was one of the tiniest chapels in Lincolnshire when it was built, and it's still there. Let's go and see it. Here's the chapel. This is the second chapel that Hameringham has ever had. The first one still stands as well, and you can find that one in High Hameringham. That one was for the Wesleyans, this one was for the Primitive Methodists. The primitive chapel was built between 1863 and 1865. Although tiny, it must have been well used. It lasted until well into the 20th century, finally closing its doors in the mid-1920s. It became an agricultural store for a while, although there are some photographs that float around online that show it to be derelict. It's great to see it's not anymore. At some point in the early 2000s, it was converted into a very small cottage. Now known as Chapel Cottage, this tiny building is by far Low Hameringham's best feature. Mind you, there are other things this area is known for too. This lane leads to Hameringham Grange. We can only go so far up this because it becomes a private road as it reaches its end. Just before the end though, look to your left and you'll see the remains of Dunsthorpe. Dunsthorpe is a deserted medieval village which is now only represented on the landscape by way of a few limited earthworks. Bones have been found here in the past, although I couldn't find anything that tells us more about them. I've no idea if they were human or animal bones. However, human seems likely. For sure, this place had houses, but it's also known there was a church here too at some point. Records show it was in ruins by 1421. Could the bones have been from medieval burials in the churchyard perhaps? During the 15th century, Dunsthorpe was large enough to command its own parish. However, with the church in ruins come 1437, it was merged with Hameringham and the two have remained together ever since. Right, here we are then in High Hameringham, and I don't know whether you could tell from the drive-in this episode, they've resurfaced the roads around here just recently, so at the moment there's loose chippings all over the place. They are a pain in the neck, quite frankly, so yeah, there's going to be some crunchiness under my feet here as we walk through this, but there isn't much of a walk to do, quite frankly, because, you know, High Hameringham has really just got 2 or 3 sort of major landmarks. One's the church, we've got an old chapel to see, there's a thatched cottage too, so let's get on and do it. It shouldn't take us very long. So to High Hameringham then, where we'll encounter the main features of this scattered village. On the map from 1900, you can see the first Methodist chapel, the one for the Wesleyans. The house immediately north of it is the Thatched Cottage, a lovely building indeed. North of those is the main cluster, centred on All Saints Church. Let's see all of these things. Being located in the Lincolnshire countryside miles away from any major city, Hameringham offers sweeping views across the county. On a clear day, the towers of Lincoln Cathedral are visible in one direction and Boston Stump can also be seen in another. There are many walks in the area and several of them pass through the village. One public footpath runs right through the churchyard. That seems like a good place to begin here. To get to it, we have to walk through an area of housing first. There aren't many residences in this village, and what few there are relatively modern. Mainly they're infills, placed in between some much older farm buildings. Hameringham's parish church, which is dedicated to All Saints, is a Grade 2 listed building dating from the year 1200. Despite that, it was heavily restored in 1893 by Hodgson Fowler after the nave collapsed. Reputedly, there was once a much larger building on this site. Backing up that theory, in 1869, the local rector discovered considerable foundations where dirt was cleared from around the present church. One thing you'll notice almost straight away about this church would be its various colours. One account I found about this place described All Saints as a kaleidoscope of colour. I mean, it really isn't wrong. The reason it is so pretty and varied colour-wise is all to do with the plethora of different materials that it's made from. On display here we have greenstone, limestone, red sandstone, and even some brick thrown in for good measure. The main material in the walls is sandstone. The bell turret has wooden slatted bell openings, whilst the slates on the pyramid-shaped roof were replaced by copper in 2005. That's because the slates were difficult to maintain on such a steep slope. In 2010, lead from the roof was stolen. This event led to lengthy negotiations with East Lindsey District Council and English Heritage because the parochial church council were reluctant to replace the stolen lead with the same material. As a result of that, All Saints became one of the first churches in the country to have something called turn-coated steel on its roof. Although it's not lead, it is an alternative roofing material that works in almost the same way. Inside this one, the pews and the altar are Victorian. The 15th century octagonal font is of particular interest, having cusp panels containing shields and a pedestal with intricate tracery and figures including angels. The pulpit also features an original hourglass in its stand. The front of the altar was designed and embroidered by a local lady called Enid Mason in 1985. Both Enid and her husband Martin were responsible for reopening the church a decade prior, after it had been disused for some time. You can also see various marks on the walls in this church. Most of those are attributed to sword sharpening and musket fire, which went on during the Battle of Winceby. We'll see the site of that battlefield later this week. Speaking of conflict, the west window, made of stained glass, features a tribute to 2nd Lieutenant John Kenneth Bryce Smith, who died on September the 11th, 1915, of wounds received at the Bluff. Okay, so just in front of the church you have the junction with the other road which we're about to walk down, and on that junction there is the parish notice board. You know what that means by now, people, of course you do. It means one of these things is going on there, and there you go. That is my visit to Hameringham recorded in the official way. So we need to finish this walk off, don't we? So if we go past the parish notice board, down here we will find all the other little bits. Now to make our way down this dead-end lane where we'll find the rest of High Hameringham. For the most part, this lane has, well, nothing. That is until you reach the end of it, where you come across two landmarks side by side. This is the Thatched Cottage, a Grade 2 listed late 18th century house. It's a traditional mud and stud building, and although it retains a lot of its original building work, it underwent a raft of 20th century alterations. I didn't find a great deal more about this, but wouldn't this just be one of the most perfect houses in which to live? Down a dead-end lane with countryside all around you and guaranteed peace and quiet is surely everyone's dream, isn't it? There are some neighbours though. Here's the other chapel, the original one which predates the tiny one in Low Hameringham. This was built in 1840 and it's changed a little bit since then. The building's entrance was originally on the south elevation, giving it a broad 3-bay front. Later it was extended, and as a result the entrance moved at some point in the late 19th century. Used by the Wesleyans, this chapel closed in 1981 and the building was subsequently converted into a house. Now it sits side by side with the Thatched Cottage, providing Hameringham with two very unusual Lincolnshire dwellings from differing time periods. That's the beauty of the English countryside. Okay, there we are, a nice 18.5-minute walk from end to end there. Good way to kick off this week in East Lindsey. So it's time to make our way to the next one here, which is, again, one you can split into two distinct areas. One area is more of a village than the other, as you'll see tomorrow. On our way out of Hameringham towards the next one, there's a sign by the roadside which I thought was worth reading. Let's stop and see what it says. Okay, so this is what the signboard says. There's quite a bit of information on this actually. It says Hameringham on the edge of the wolds at the top, and it tells you some things you can see on a clear day. Well, today is a clear day, so we'll see in a moment what we can actually see from here. There's a bit to read first. Hameringham may be derived from the Old English group name Hameringus, the dwellers by the hill, Hammer being hill and Ham homestead, village or estate, and probably simply means the homestead or estate of the Hameringers. Well, that's not what my source material said. It said village of the Hammer dwellers, if you remember from the beginning, but I guess it's interchangeable. Hameringham provides a fine vantage point from which to appreciate the beauty of the Wolds Edge, with views over the fen towards Boston and across the Clay Vale to the cathedral city of Lincoln. And underneath that you can see It tells you about the Lincoln Gap. On a clear day, you can see the distinctive silhouette of Lincoln Cathedral on the skyline behind you. Well, it's a clear day. Let's have a look. Can we see Lincoln Cathedral from here? Yes, I can. You won't be able to because it's far too far away in the distance, but I can just make it out on the skyline over there. Okay, that's good. What else does the board say? It mentions Boston Stump as well. So let's have a look at that. Boston Stump. On a clear day, on the horizon to your right, standing sentinel over Fenton Coast, rises Boston Stump, the largest and most impressive parish church in England. So, to my right, yes indeed, I can see Boston Stump. Again, you won't be able to because it's so far away, but I can just make it out on the horizon over there. Brilliant. Okay. Now, on the left-hand side of this sign, it tells you a bit about the Battle of Winceby, which we'll be covering in a future episode later this week. And this bit here mentions Slash Hollow. So this says, the Battle of Winceby lasted no more than half an hour. The defeated royalists fled southwest into Slash Hollow and thence towards Winceby Gate in the boundary hedge to your left. Chased by the avenging parliamentarians, scores of royalist dragoons reached the gateway at the same moment. Tragically, the boundary gate did not open into Hameringham, but into Winceby. Impossible to pull the gate towards them because of the numbers pushing against it. The royalists were trapped and brutally massacred from behind. So the boundary hedge to the left, over there, so that then is where Slash Hollow is. Now, of course, I will be mentioning Slash Hollow again when we cover the Battle of Winceby in a future episode later this week, so look out for that. But that's Hameringham, people. Right then, we have completed another East Lindsey Parish. That one was fairly easy, all things considered. Such a simple little place is Hameringham, and a pure delight to boot. The next one will see us crossing some land that's gated because we're about to go deep, deep into this farmland. We also have some unusual birds to talk about tomorrow too. See you again soon. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.